What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ Buck back with you. Buck, what's going on, my friend?
Not too much, DJ. Just kind of making our way through the week. And it's funny being back in the routine of a football week. And so the podcast and film watching and getting ready, reviewing one week, getting ready for the next week. It's a lot of fun, but you know how it is.
Yeah, it's busy, but it's fun. I kind of enjoy the schedule part of it. I mean, we like routine. I think that goes all the way back to when you're kids and you have school, you have sports. It's just everything gets into a nice routine and a nice flow. And we're very much there as we're in the middle of the season here. Today on the episode, Buck, we're going to look at this Thursday night matchup. Great matchup, potential playoff preview here in the AFC East with the Bills and the Dolphins squaring off. So we'll have some thoughts on that game, what to look for there, Thursday night football. And then we'll also want to get into college football a little bit. And one of the quarterbacks that I think is going to be definitely a popular topic of conversation as we get through the college football season, as well as we march towards the NFL draft. So we'll have some thoughts on that as well. But let's start first of all here. This Bills-Dolphins game, Thursday night. What did you see from that Bills team? We'll start there. They were down early against the Cardinals, came storming back, and were able to get that victory. But what are you seeing on the Bills side of things one weekend as they get ready to take on the Dolphins?
Give them a lot of credit for displaying their toughness. Got off to a slow start, but then superhero Josh Allen took over. And we've seen Josh Allen kind of go into that superhero mode where he's not only dominating the game as a passer, but he does it as a runner. And his size, strength, toughness, particularly down in the red zone, is problematic. You just don't have guys on the perimeter that are big enough to get him down. And it makes me think about when you were working in Baltimore and you guys talked about when you're making selections and you're building your team and your defense, one of the questions that you ask is, can this guy tackle Ben Roethlisberger? I think you have to start thinking about that when you are building your team. Do you have guys on the perimeter that can tackle these big athletic quarterbacks that we're seeing? And Josh Allen kind of has to be one of the guys that we treat as the gold standard. Can you get the big fella down? Because if you can't tackle him either as a pass rusher or as a perimeter defender, it just makes it very, very difficult to stop their offense.
Man, no question. He definitely wanted a Superman mode. And one of the guys who was really emerging as one of his favorite players is Khalil Shakir. And it's interesting. I went back and I just pulled up his notes for Shakir when he was coming out in the 22 draft. Now he's a local kid from where I was living at the time up in Murrieta. He had went to Vista Murrieta, program I know you're familiar with, up at Boise State. He was 5'1", 117, 196, so right around 6 foot, right around 200 pounds, ran 4.43. I said he's crisp. He has outstanding hands. You'll see a bunch of one-handed catches, sneaky juice, slot fades. He gives excellent effort as a blocker. He's elusive after the catch. And this is funny because at the time, this comp wouldn't have really stood out at this point in time. My comp for him, Buck, Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Ooh, nice comp.
And that was, I think it was right after Amon-Ra just come into the league. So he wasn't what we know him as now and someone who's making $30 million a year. But if you're a Bills fan and wondering how good can this guy be, that was the comparison coming out of college.
Man, that's a really good comparison. And when I think about the comp in terms of what Amon-Ra St. Brown has been, he's been a guy who, look, people have kind of categorized him as a slot receiver, but he's much more than that. And I think his toughness, his running ability, the high IQ that he brings to the table has kind of set the tone for the Lions offense. And in the Buffalo Bills, what you're trying to do is you're waiting for someone to emerge as the guy that can be the leader of that passing game. We know they want to utilize the tight ends, but you still need someone on the perimeter to be able to get that done. We saw Shakir flash a little bit last year. We saw him put up numbers, small numbers in terms of that, but the yards per catch was impressive. But for him to kind of come into his own and kind of settle into a role that maybe leads him to be the top option in the passing game, you have to like that if you're the coaching staff. And you really got to like it if you're Josh Allen, because he is being tasked with doing the Pat Mahomes thing, meaning elevate those around him. And so far, so good after 1 week of play.
The other player on the Bills side of things that I was curious to see what he looked like, and someone who I think you're seeing start to really blossom right before our eyes is, do you remember when we had that conversation with Greg Rousseau coming out, and we said, okay, this guy, he's so young, but he's someone who loves ball, someone who studies pass rush. He's long. He's explosive. The pieces are all going to come together. They might not all be together yet, but it is all going to work out. It's all going to come together. That's why I think we were both pretty aggressive in our grades on him. And here he comes out week 1. Now he's got a couple years under his belt. Lo and behold, 3 sacks game 1, and you're starting to see that thing all come together.
Starting to see it come together. And DJ, the thing that is the common denominator when we've had the opportunity to talk to pass rushers, they can walk you through their plan. Their vivid detail, their ability to articulate how they want to attack pass protection, how they want to protect blockers. It lends itself to them being able to set a plan and then execute that plan. And it's more than just being a great athlete on the perimeter. When Rousseau sat with us that day and kind of talked us through a bunch of different things, because remember at the time he was making that transition, he had been like a wide receiver and an offensive player to then being an edge defender, and it was kind of viewed as a one-year wonder. Yeah, he has been terrific, and he is very, very impressive when it comes to what he's able to do off the edges.
All right, here's the notes. Here's the report. Greg Rousseau, tall, long, rangy defender, lined all over the front in Miami's scheme, was extremely productive in 2019, despite having limited experience on the defensive line. Played safety and wideout in high school. Lacks an elite get-off as a pass rusher, but his combination of quick hands, length, and instinct leads to sacks and pressures in bunches. He has an effective swipe rip and can close and finish. Didn't show much power early in the 19 season, but he got better every week. By the end of the season, he flashed the ability to convert speed to power. See the Duke game. He's very comfortable and effective rushing inside. In the run game, uses his length to set the edge. He will get a little high at times. Effort is excellent. Overall, Rousseau is still developing, but he has found a way to post elite production while learning on the job. His best football is ahead of him.
Yeah, you're talking about best football ahead. It was one of those things, like DJ, like the developmental piece is significant, but you can roll the dice on guys as developmental players if I believe they have high football IQ and instincts. And he appeared to have a really high functioning IQ, and you can buy into that he was going to put the work in to make sure he refined the instincts. I think the report matches the player that he was and the player that he's become.
Yeah, that was a couple of the Bills' takeaways. So let's get to the Miami Dolphins, what we saw from them. You saw them in person. We'll break them down, then we'll kind of get into the matchups, what we're looking forward to. And we talked about this a little bit on Monday's show, but seeing that team up close and personal, I know the speed is the high takeaway here, but what beyond just the speed of this team is something that stood out?
Chris Greer and Mike McDaniels have a sweet tooth. Like they have a certain flavor, a certain type that they like. Speed is on the menu. I mean, they're going to get a fast guy. But DJ, when you watch this team, they're all similar built and they have similar skill sets in some capacity. So when I think about all the wideouts that they tried out, right? So against the Jags, they were trying out Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. You saw Braxton Berrios there, all-pro returner, get into the mix. You know they have OBJ on the sideline. He is out for 4 weeks on whatever the pup list. Then in the running back room, though, DJ, the running back room is crazy because the conversation was about Raheem Mostert, David Achane, and I talked about Jalen Wright. Jalen Wright wasn't even a factor. It's Jeff Wilson that had an opportunity to get in the game. And all of them can do a bunch of different things because they demand a lot from their running backs. They go out in space and play in empty formations. They catch the ball out the backfield. They're running swings and screens to them. They run toss sweeps to get them to the edge. It requires a really unique skill set to play running back for the Dolphins. And for all of the conversation about their offensive line and how they're worried, and people are worried about Terron Armstead and Austin Jackson, DJ, they're solid because they don't run inside. They don't deal with stuff on the inside. They're athletic enough to get to the perimeter. They do all their damage on the perimeter. So they really alleviate, I would say, some of the importance of the offensive line because it's all in space. It's 3-on-2, 2-on-1s. It's wide receivers taking on DBs, tight ends and a wide receiver taking on a linebacker and a safety. They don't really hit you there. And so it's funny because you almost call it like smoke and mirrors, trick 'em football, but it's not. It is just a different style that you have to get prepared for. And when they get it rolling, particularly down there in the heat, you wear down. They wear you down in a different way, where the Niners wore the Jets down physically up front going at them. The Miami Dolphins wear you down by making you chase the rabbits. Like you have to chase them from sideline to sideline and all over the field.
When we look at the game, this matchup, one of the things that's fascinating to me is Jordan Poyer now being a member of the Miami Dolphins. Having such an intimate knowledge of the way things are done in Buffalo defensively, obviously can be an asset to Mike McDaniel in terms of rules and things that he can relay. But I also am curious, and it works both ways, but Poyer's knowledge of Josh Allen and Josh Allen's knowledge of Poyer. When you go back to your career, Buck, on the field, do you ever remember, I know I've been around different teams where, almost kind of we'd have a player come upstairs and kind of give us a little scouting report as we were kind of preparing advance reports on guys that they knew. But do you ever remember anything like that of a teammate playing against a former team and it being a real help to you?
Well, I can tell you right now, like I remember going from the Kansas City Chiefs to the Oakland Raiders at the time, John Gruden's first year in Oakland. Last game of the year was Kansas City versus Oakland, and there still were like some playoff implications. And I remember having played defense in Kansas City, John Gruden sitting me down in the cafeteria, and I was one of those guys that kept every game plan and report. And I remember bringing that in and walking through the defensive script and being able to tell him, hey, here's what we thought about you and your offense. Here's what we were going to go to. If you guys gave us movement, you gave us a lot of shifting, we're going to play cover 2. We're going to do all of this stuff, and conveying that message and being able to kind of give you a look behind the scenes into the mind of the defensive coordinator. I think Jordan Poyer can do that for Mike McDaniel. Say, hey, when we played you guys, here's what we were thinking about the personnel, what we wanted to take away or whatever. He also can stand in front of the team and talk about Josh Allen because he's seen him every day. When all those spring and OTA workouts, when they were facing them, he could talk about maybe little tells that he may have. He locks on this way or little things that give some problems. It's very valuable. And I know people are dismissive, like, yeah, but they know him too. But sometimes, man, that intel, just like the little things that you never think about, they're able to give a tell because they have been around the player more than anybody else has. And they really know the player inside and out, not only physically, but mentally, how he may handle a mistake or two early in a contest.
That's a great example, literally right from your career. And I think it is something to keep an eye on. I think it does have value and be something in a game with two teams that look pretty evenly matched. That can make a difference. So anything else in this matchup that you're intrigued by? To me, I look at, the Bills just paid Spencer Brown, who's a really good tackle. He's a really good player. You got your hands full this week, buddy, because Jalen Phillips is the real friggin' deal. And you watch him last week, he looks healthy coming off that injury. And he looks like somebody who, if I was going to put the number on it, Buck, if he has under 14, 15 sacks, I'd be disappointed. He's got that type of ability to go north of that number.
Okay, DJ, one of the things that's great about working for the job is like when it was back to football weekend, back together weekend, I had a chance to go to Miami. Shortly after leaving Jacksonville, I go to Miami, spend a couple of days, watched him practice. Jalen Phillips isn't back yet, but man, he was so gung-ho and dead set on getting back for the opener. This is after Achilles injury. This is with Bradley Chubb sideline where no one even knew if they were going to have a formidable pass rusher available to them. This dude comes out the tunnel like they announce him, and it is like he is ready. He's locked in and ready to go. But still, in your mind, you're like, man, this dude's not going to be ready to like really make an impact. DJ, he has it all.
He's really good.
The contrast comparison between Greg Rousseau and Jalen Phillips is another one where when you talk to him and he was able to talk you through the approach and what he wanted to do and those things. We talk a lot about like smart, fast, physical, smart, yank, whatever the core traits are when it comes to evaluating and what people say are your core beliefs. I don't think you can underestimate football intelligence when it comes to pass rushers. There is an art to it that extends beyond just being the best athlete on the corner.
Yeah, I agree. To me, I think over the last few years, we've connected receivers and pass rushers. They're just craftsman positions, man. So you got to kind of be obsessed with the craft to be great at it. And I think we've really got a lot of recent examples of guys that are doing their thing that we saw that from them going through that process. All right, let's take a quick break, and we come back. We will jump into a college quarterback that we're looking forward to monitoring here as we go forward. All right, Buck. One of the teams that has been most intriguing coming off of a monster win over Michigan is Texas. Expectations are high. They've been high there in the past. This feels different though with this Steve Sarkisian team. They've got the horses up front. They've got depth. They've got speed. And to win a championship nowadays too, it feels like you better have somebody that can that can take the snap and win you a shootout if you need to with so many high-powered offenses. And man, I think Quinn Ewers can be that guy. And I think now you start looking at a couple hostile environment wins. He's gone into Alabama and won last year. He goes into Michigan, defending national champs, and they just beat the stuffing out of them. He's showing some poise to go along with a lot of raw ability. And I know this is a kid you've known all the way going back to high school.
Yeah, no, DJ. And here's why it's really important to track guys along their journey, right? One of the things that we used to do when we were in area scout is you get an opportunity to watch guys as freshmen, and then you see them grow. And even though you're not directly scouting them, you pay attention to guys, particularly the ones that we know are the hyped up, much ballyhooed 5-star recruits that come in. You kind of pay attention to what they're doing. Here's what I will say, and it's really a great learning lesson for me. When I was around Quinn Ewers at Elite 11, it was my first exposure to him. He was still rocking the mullet. He was still kind of like the guy that people were celebrating. So he had some of this cockiness and bravado about him that I can't say that I necessarily loved. And then you see him bypass the senior season. He goes to Ohio State. He leaves after a semester. And so you're like, man, is this dude legit? Is he real? But I'm going to say, watching him from the time he had the opportunity to first start playing at Texas to the evolution in terms of his game kind of moving and refining and growing, and watching how Steve Sarkisian has had a positive impact on his game. The guy that I watched, and I know it's TV scout, but the guy that I watched against Michigan, DJ, he has that number one overall pick feel and look to him. He not only has the tools and the talent to play at a franchise quarterback level, I think he has the toughness, and I think he also has this moxie and confidence that you must have to be able to do it. Because make no mistake, it's hard to go and win at the Big House against the defending national champions. This dude was on his game from beginning to end, dropping dimes. I'm beginning to become a big Quinn Ewers fan as we begin to look ahead to the draft and the quarterbacks that could be available.
Yeah, look, some of these guys just grow up, man. They're young. There's a lot thrown at them when they're young. You hit some adversity. I think that's a benefit to come out the other side of some of that adversity because, man, it's hard when you get them to the next level and they've never had it. And then all of a sudden now you get it. And it's like, man, we don't know. You know, a great example of that. Bryce Young's a great example of that. Bryce Young, 5-star coming out of modern day high school, number one team in the nation, goes to Alabama, plays with, superior talent, Heisman Trophy, first overall pick. All of a sudden now dropping with the Carolina Panthers and the crap really hits the fan. He hasn't really been in that situation before. Quinn Ewers has been through a little bit of turmoil early on in his career. He's also in a position where don't forget about the fact that he has the most popular number 2 quarterback in all of college football in his room with a name that's literally gold in Arch Manning. So there's the thought of, man, I have one bad game. Shoot, I make one bad throw. There's going to be people up in the stands that want to see the other guy. That's a lot of pressure. And so to see him be able to navigate those waters and go into hostile environments, I'm really going to make a point this year. And I think you've done a better job than me in this over the years of bringing these things up. And I'm gonna work on it. I'm gonna make it a point of emphasis this year for this draft cycle. I want to see with players. I want to see the big moments in big games. I want to see rivalry games. I want to see best opponents. I want to see fourth quarters. I want to see trailing. Like I'm gonna have weighted grades this year. I'm not gonna watch 4 games and give them equal value. I'm not gonna give you the same value for your performance, against Sam Houston. Yeah, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna give you bonus points. You go on the road against the defending national champs, that means more. And I shouldn't say it's just Sam Houston. I could say like versus Indiana,
whatever
Rutgers, whoever. But those playoff games, those bowl games, those rivalry games, bad weather games. I think that's a great indicator, man. I think that's a really good indicator of what these guys are going to be like when the pressure is really, really on you.
Well, I mean, that's part of the things that you want to see, right? Like, I mean, you kind of want to see what are they like when they struggle? How do they respond to adversity? A lot of times, I think it's easy to get caught up in looking at the play like, oh my God, he had 3 interceptions in this game. Like, oh, that's terrible. But really, it's okay. He had 3 interceptions. What is he like the next drive? What is he like the next drive? Does he come off of it and start throwing checkdowns, or is he still willing to make that tight window throw when they have to have it, or struggle in the first half, but now they need a drive, and in the 2-minute drive, he executes it. They win the game. All of those things. It matters because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get a feel for how he's going to be at the next level. And the next level is the hardest level of ball that he'll ever play. And you need to see them tested. And if they're tested and if they come through on the other side, you probably feel a lot better about what they can be at the next level.
Yeah, I mean, look, the guy's got a ton of twitch. I posted that the other day. He's just got a lot of life in his lower body and in his arm. Like he's very sudden in all of his movements. There's nothing monotone about him at all. There's just a lot of juice, which I love seeing. They get plays called back. He doesn't flinch, get right back down the field, put points up on the board. I think he's really tough. I used the comparison, which we had talked about over the summer, was not popular. I think more than anything else, just because of the rivalry. But I said he reminds me a lot of Baker, like Baker coming into his last year. And people are like, oh, you look at Baker's stats. I'm like, God, the next time we talk about stats in the draft room, be the first. I don't care about stats. I'm talking about somebody who has a feistiness to him, a competitiveness to him, who has a live arm, who can use his legs to create if he has to. He can get himself out of trouble. You get a free rusher. He can beat a free rusher. Baker goes on the road at Ohio State, hostile environment, wins. Ewers goes on the Ewers goes on the road against Alabama. Nick Saban's Alabama goes in there and gets a win. I think there's a lot of that kind of that toughness, that fortitude that those guys have that they share in common. But lo and behold, I guess you're not allowed to compare Texas and Oklahoma players because then everybody loses their mind.
Maybe not, but you're right, man. From a mentality, a personality standpoint, DJ. And I'm sure we've talked to people all over the league, but I'm sure you can talk to people in Tampa about how Baker's presence has changed the dynamic in the room. And we're not saying that he's Tom Brady, but remember, they had success winning the Super Bowl under Tom Brady, who's wired a certain way when it comes to the competitiveness. Well, Baker comes not the same player as Tom, but the competitive nature, he has that. You know, we always talk about a team as a reflection of the coach, but the offense is definitely a reflection of the quarterback and how the quarterback presents himself and acts. And so in looking at Quinn Ewers, not only the talent, but the toughness and tenacity as your team, and we talk about like those pillars of what they believe in, toughness is always one of those things your quarterback has to exhibit it. He is earning high marks for the toughness and tenacity that he's displayed during his time with the Texas Longhorns.
Last thing on him, high school quarterback, kind of a legendary high school quarterback in Texas. And we see a lot of these Texas quarterbacks in the NFL. They're littered throughout the league. Is there something to the fact that these guys have played in college stadiums, basically glorified college stadiums, in front of big crowds and played in pressure-packed games, literally from the time they were 14, 15 years old?
100%. You only get comfortable on the big stage by being on the big stage. There's nothing that can replicate it. You can't do it in practice. You can't do it. But I mean, you can visualize it and all that, but until you play in those big games, and I remember this, and I don't know how you were before games. Like, did you remember those rubber legs that you would get, like those first couple of plays or whatever? I just remember, like for me, like returning kicks, like that first one, I was just like, man, Lord, I just hope you let my legs move. But it takes getting that. But understand, like those big moments where you have to play the pressure or whatever. We've talked about like your ability to win that game at Wake Forest, and people who don't know, but for that at the time, that was a huge win for Appalachian State. How you finish the game off and understanding, hey, this is a moment, guys, we got to finish this off. Being able to do it. How you handle those pressure moments are really indicative of how you're going to do it in the pros, but you only have an opportunity to display that by doing it and doing it over and over and over again, and you get comfortable being in those environments.
Yeah, it is interesting. We have to do a little study on that, by the way, the latest with this season. I'd love to know the breakdown of where the quarterbacks come from. Maybe we'll do that on the next episode. Something to keep an eye on. Anything else you want to throw out there before we get out of here today, Buck?
No, it's fun because we had a chance to touch on a few different things, but the Quinn Ewers conversation is going to be a fascinating one. I feel like
Yes,
things sometimes when we go to recruiting rankings and all that stuff, sometimes it comes full circle. Started at the top, kind of disappeared, and he may make his way right back to the top by the time we get to the draft if he comes out.
Yep, it all comes full circle. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Hope you guys have enjoyed hanging with us. We will see you tomorrow. Again, we're 5 days a week right here on Move the Sticks.